And what's interesting is, there is a huge effort by the American government to destabilize the Islamic Republic of Iran, to incite Iranians to overthrow their government, to create unrest in Iran. And if you ever confront these people, they always insist, no, we don't support Israel. No, we don't support American imperialism. No, we just want more human rights in Iran. We just want more rights for women in Iran. We just want more rights for gay people. We want to overthrow the Islamic Republic. We don't work for Israel. No, we don't work for Israel. We're not working for George Soros, the American imperialist. We are just a human rights movement in Iran. This video is awesome. It's awesome because this woman very clearly proves that the so-called human rights and feminist movement in Iran is actually working for Israel. And so we're going to watch this video. It's awesome. It's awesome. I think it's so great that she made this video because it is amazing. Right? Sometimes the people that are trying to destabilize Iran claim to be communists. They claim to be, to be anti-imperialist. They say the Islamic Republic isn't revolutionary enough. Not this woman. This woman, who her video has gone viral. She is the voice of the Iranian feminist and women's movement. And she uses this video to defend Israel. So let's go. Let's hear it. This is a great video. And I know I'm not allowed to react to this because I am a white man. Did you know that? White men are not allowed to ever disagree with anything that women of color, is she of color? I mean, she's Persian. So, I'm not allowed to do this. Keep in mind, I am a bad person for reacting to this video because I am white and male and she is not. So just so you all know, before I react to this video and debunk her pro-imperialist bullshit, just be aware that I am a bad person for doing this. I have come to terms with being a bad person and not just agreeing with someone because of their identity. But, if you didn't know I was a bad person, I am a bad person for making this video. Here we go.
Hi, Iranian woman here. It's become very apparent that you haven't been listening to anything that we've had to say for the past 2 years. But I was wondering if you could just lend me a few minutes of your time in this ungodly hour to hear us now.
It's funny because the Iranian women like her who are trying to overthrow the Islamic Republic have been blasted from every TV network for the past decade, right? And their message has been promoted by CNN and Fox and MSNBC. On top of that, their message is broadcast into Iran. There are hundreds of Persian language TV stations broadcast from Los Angeles into Iran, trying to incite Iranians to rise up and overthrow the government. So I think some people have heard her. Just saying, I've got a YouTube channel. There's a few hundred of you watching. I love you all, but I'm pretty sure that the U.S. State Department-backed movement has gotten some attention. Just pretty sure of that. But hey, no one's ever heard what she's about to say, ever, right? So continue. This is a message apparently no one's ever heard. No one has ever heard that women are oppressed in Iran. No one has ever heard that Israel good, Iran bad. No one's ever heard this before. So, I mean, this is such a unique, original message that she has. We better listen because apparently no one's ever heard it before.
We've had to watch over the past 24 hours people clambering onto the internet to exclaim that Iran has the right to defend itself. In what capacity have you distorted this story to make the Islamic Republic the victim?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they did have an embassy in Syria that was not in Israel. And Israel went into Syria and blew it up. And there was a top Iranian general and 6 other people inside that embassy, and they did die. I mean, I don't know. I guess, Iran is being aggressive by putting their embassy into a country that is so close to Israel. That's what it was. Yeah. Iran, it's all part of a conspiracy. Iran, they created this country right next to Israel called Syria, and then they put their embassy there, and that was an attack on Israel. So Israel was actually defending itself right there. On what capacity could you possibly think that Israel going into one country that they have no right to be in and blowing up the embassy of another country and killing 7 people inside that embassy. And what way could you possibly think that that's like not okay or something? I mean, yeah, wow. You know, I love the argument when she just goes, I mean, she just says it that way. So yeah.
That's I think what we're most curious about.
Well, actually, no one's curious about it. Everyone in the world knows that this makes perfect sense. So if you're curious about it, you got a hole in your head.
When we were screaming for they were lynching us, where were you? When we
lynching you, seriously. They were lynching you. I really want to hear about them lynching you, right? So I want to hear about how they lynched you, right? Now, we did hear for the past 20 years and the past 5 or 6 years, we've heard about how there are women in Iran who are oppressed, how, women from the rich neighborhoods in Iran are going out and protesting against the Islamic Republic. We've seen that. We've noticed, but lynching you, really, they're lynching you, right? I mean, it's not like Iran doesn't have laws or courts. They're just mobs of people going out and hanging you from trees. Don't think so.
We were screaming that they were killing Iranian women for not wearing a hijab.
And that didn't happen, right? There was one incident in Iran where there was a woman who didn't wear a hijab, and she went to the class at the police station that they're required to take, where they learn about why the hijab is important. And so she went to the class, and at the class, she collapsed and she had a medical issue. She was not beaten up by the police. She was not, it had nothing to do with her being at the police station. But you're telling me that they are killing women in Iran for not wearing their headscarves. What planet are you living on? I have been to Iran. They do require women to wear headscarves, but there was one incident where one woman collapsed. And you're trying to tell me that in Iran, the punishment for not wearing a headscarf is death. That is what she's literally saying about her own country. She's blasted through social media by the tech monopolies, by the US giants, trying to tell people that in Iran, if a woman doesn't wear a headscarf, take her out and shoot her. And that's not what happens. Okay? And everybody who knows anything about the country knows that, yes, they do require women to wear a headscarf. It's called public decency. Most parts of this country require women to wear shirts because we don't think women walking around topless is okay. There, they want women to cover their heads, right? They have a little bit of a different culture, a little different standard of public decency. But they don't execute women for not wearing their headscarves. That's just a lie. There was one incident where one woman collapsed in a class.
Were you when they were lynching Iranian men from cranes for protesting? Where were you?
Okay, so lynching refers to extrajudicial killing, right? If somebody goes on trial and gets convicted of a crime, that's not lynching. That's called the death penalty. And also, the executions that happened were not for protesting. They were for murdering police officers, for blowing up buildings, for killing people, right? And I don't think anyone was lynched for protesting. So that's another lie. Women don't get the death penalty for not wearing a headscarf, and no one was lynched for protesting. So you just lied twice. First sentence was a lie. Next sentence was a lie.
When we were explaining that this is a terrorist occupying force, where were you? But all of a
That's all over CNN all the time. That's all over CNN all the time. People demonizing the Islamic Republic, people lying about the Islamic Republic. The US government considers the Islamic Republic of Iran to be a state sponsor of terrorism. That's the whole global imperialist establishment is literally saying what you're saying. So I don't know how you find yourself marginalized.
Sudden, everyone's graduated from Instagram School of Law to say that this is a violation of international law and Iran has the right to defend itself.
Yeah, that's right. All these people think they're like legal experts or something for thinking that Israel doesn't have the right to just blow up the embassy of a foreign country. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to say that Israel doesn't have the right to go into Syria and blow up the embassy of Iran? I mean, who do we? I mean, do you think you're? Who do you think you are? You think you're some kind of legal expert to be saying that Israel doesn't have? I mean, what? That's crazy, right? I mean, how do you know they don't? How do you know there's not some loophole in international law that says that it's okay for Israel to go into Syria and blow up the Iranian embassy? I mean, how do you think you know? Right there, you go. I mean, how do you know murder is wrong? I mean, how do you know, right? So Joe Bob pulled out a gun and shot his neighbor. How do you know that's illegal, right? You're not a legal expert, geez, my friend told me I had to, buckle my seatbelt in when I was driving a car. I mean, who does he think he is? Henry Ford? I mean, he knows all about cars now. He's some genius. Does he have a degree in car engineering? Right? Oh my God! The other day, my mom told me I shouldn't eat too much sugar as it wasn't good for my health. Who does she think she is? Some kind of expert nutritionist? Is she got a degree? Does she own have a nutrition channel on YouTube? Has she written 6 books on nutrition? I mean, what does she know, right? I mean, how do you know? How do you know, right? It's not like common sense or anything. I mean, this is so, yeah, what do we know? How do we know? How do we really know? Are we experts in international law to really know that Israel shouldn't be going into other people's countries and blowing up the embassy of other people's countries and killing people without provocation? How do you know that, right? Who do you think? No one's ever listened to people that want to overthrow the Iranian government. No one's ever listened to people saying that Iran oppresses women, ever. No one's ever listened to any of them. They're only on TV 24/7 spewing their World War III propaganda, but apparently no one has ever heard them before. Just listen to her. Guys, why are you so mean? Just listen to her. No one's ever listened to this poor woman, ever.
You're not talking about Iran. You're talking about the Islamic Republic. What the Islamic Republic does.
Well, the Islamic Republic is the internationally recognized government of Iran. What's the name of Iran, the country? Is it the Kingdom of Persia? No. Is it the Arab Republic of Iran? No, they're not Arabs. They're Persians. Is it the Democratic Republic of Iran, like the Democratic Republic of Korea? Oh, no, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran. There is a UN member state. What's it called? It's called the Islamic Republic of Iran. Oh, boy. Wow. But, you're not talking about Iran. You're talking about the Islamic Republic, right? I'm sorry. I know you're really sad that that Papa Pahlavi is not in charge anymore. You really want the Shahs of Sunset Park and their Baha'i courtiers to be running Iran, but they're not no more. So you don't consider the Islamic Republic of Iran to be legitimate. Okay, well, the overwhelming majority of the people living in that country disagree with you. So
is not a reflection of the Iranian people. We've been clear about what we want, which is peace.
I think the people of Iran also want peace. And that's why they are not happy with what Israel is doing. And that's why they're not thrilled with the USA overthrowing Iraq right next to them and destabilizing Iraq and destabilizing and trying to overthrow the government of Syria and invading Afghanistan right next to them and destabilizing Afghanistan. You do realize 3 countries that are right on Iran's border have been invaded and destabilized by the United States. You do realize that. You do realize the USA puts crippling sanctions on Iran. You do realize that Iran's right to peaceful nuclear energy has been heavily suppressed by the United States. Like, the USA designates Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism. The USA murdered Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani. I mean, yeah. You're trying to tell me that Iran is the one that's trying to start a war here?
Second of all, you may have discovered the Middle East yesterday, but the Middle East didn't start existing yesterday.
Did you know that? Apparently the Middle East didn't start existing yesterday. Apparently anyone who doesn't agree with her and her pro-CNN, pro-Israel narrative apparently doesn't understand that the Middle East didn't start existing yesterday, right? Apparently, all the scholars in Iran, all the professors, all the people around the world standing with Palestine, all of them don't know anything, right? We all just think the Middle East started yesterday.
want to talk about an act of war, just a few days ago, a federal court determined that the attacks on Israeli embassies and Jewish centers in Argentina were conducted by the Islamic Republic and Hezbollah. That was in the 90s.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Right? So this was a federal court in America that determined that attacks on embassies of Israel in yet another country called Argentina were done by Iran. Now, you know who's investigated those attacks, those bombings on Israeli embassies in Argentina? Argentina has. And Christina Kirchner has spoken at the UN and said, we've investigated those bombings from the 90s over and over again, and we have never found any links to Iran or any links to Hezbollah, ever. So the people in the actual country where these attacks happened have never been able to establish any links. But you're telling me that because a court in America decided that the attacks on an embassy in Israel, in Argentina, the embassy of Israel in Argentina in the 90s, because an American federal court blamed that on Iran, when the Argentine government has said that's not what happened, when there's never been any evidence showing that, you're telling me that that is your argument about why it is therefore okay for Israel to go into Syria and blow up the... Okay. Well, geez, I decided that 9/11 was actually committed by the people of Guyana. And so I guess that makes it okay for America to go blow up Guyana's embassy. I mean, there's no evidence of this, but I got a court in the Netherlands to agree with me. So therefore, it's okay. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Also, two wrongs don't make a right. Right? I mean, just because you can make a spurious case that a bombing that happened in the 1990s is somehow linked in a spurious way by a court in yet another country, that then creates legal justification. Okay, so that's your argument, right? So that is your argument, right? Is that because a court in America said that something that happened in the 1990s was Iran's fault, when the courts in Argentina said that's not what happened, when there's never been any evidence ever put forward to prove that, that's your argument about why... Oh, okay. Well, I mean, can't argue with that. I mean, what do we know, right? We're not international lawyers.
That was in the 90s. Was that?
Yeah, it was in the 90s. And no evidence has ever been discovered. And you're full of shit.
An act of war? How about the terror proxies that the Islamic Republic has created to foster regional instability? What did you think?
You mean the people that are in Syria fighting against ISIS, while Israel has provided ISIS with medical care and been carrying out bombings to try and help ISIS in Syria? Are you talking about the Shia Muslims in Iraq who are trying to protect themselves from Wahhabis and ISIS-linked fighters, some of whom got weapons from Saudi Arabia? Are you talking about the people of Bahrain who want democracy and want to elect their leader and have a king imposed on them by Saudi Arabia against the popular majority? And when they go out and protest for their human rights, the U.S. and Saudi-backed government guns them down in the streets? Are you talking about the Bahrain, civil rights and freedom movement? Like, what are you talking about here, right? These terrorist proxy forces. Are you talking about the Houthi movement in Yemen, that is the hero of the whole Muslim world right now because they're stopping ships and trying to support the Palestinians? Tell me about these terrorist proxy forces. You're literally talking about people who battled ISIS on the battlefield. Nobody has killed more ISIS terrorists than Iran, right? The Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the Hezbollah, the Quds Force, they were on the battlefield in Syria kicking ISIS ass. They were on the battlefield in Iraq kicking ISIS ass. These are the people who fight against terrorism, my dear, right? And I'll also let you know that Gaddafi was a great fighter against terrorism, and the USA overthrew him. Saddam Hussein was very opposed to Al Qaeda and terrorism. I mean, this is just like, the US Israeli destabilization of Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan has enabled terrorism more than anything. And Iran is just trying to stabilize the region. And you don't know what you're talking about.
That they were there for? What did you think Hezbollah was there for?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's like half the government of Lebanon. It was formed after Israel invaded Lebanon, and it was like various self-defense militias in Lebanon to repel the Israeli invasion. And now they get elected to the parliament and they win. I mean, what are they for? I don't know. To run a country, to fight off Israeli invaders. Like, I mean, why do you think they exist? Yes, why do they exist? I mean, I don't know. Why does any political party exist? I mean, geez, Israel's only invaded Lebanon how many times? And these are people in Lebanon defending themselves, and they get elected and win elections. Why do they exist? Because the people of Lebanon want to defend themselves and want to have people represent them in the parliament.
Hamas, Houthis, the militia.
Hamas is the Palestinian wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, right? And it's been on the opposite side of Iran in Syria. It's been on the opposite side of Iran in Libya and various conflicts. Hamas gets supported by many different countries in the Middle East, many different Muslim groups, including Turkey and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, and others give support to Hamas. The Houthis are the legitimate expression of the Zaidi Shia movement in Yemen. They represent, I wrote a whole book on the history of them. It's like, just because you can list off groups and we're told by American media that they're bad, that does not somehow make Israel violating the territorial integrity of Syria to murder Iranians. That doesn't make that legitimate.
Groups in Iraq and Syria. Did you think that they were there to instigate a system of public schooling, education, to feed the poor, house the unhoused? What did you think?
Well, they actually do all of those things, just say it. I mean, all those things you said, did you think they were there to do that? They actually do that. Hezbollah builds schools. The Houthis build schools and feed people. Hezbollah does that in Lebanon. They actually do those things. So if someone thought that's what they do, they would be right. And even the harshest critics of the Houthis and of Hezbollah and of the Shia Muslim militias in Iraq, all of them actually, even their harshest critics will say that's why they're popular, is because they actually do those things. So if we thought they did those things, we would not be idiots. We would actually be people who know what we're talking about. In fact, you can read anti-terrorism documents published by Israel that admit that they do these things. So you just listed a bunch of things that these organizations funded by Iran actually do and tried to tell us we were stupid for thinking that they do these things. And in Iraq in particular, one of the main reasons these Shia militias exist is so these people can defend themselves. You do realize that there were, Wahhabi fighters who went around murdering Shia Muslims and blew up the Dome, one of the most sacred shrines in Shia Islam. And that these are people who are Shia. The majority of Iraqis are Shia. And Shia were I'm just
that they were there for. Is that an act of war?
No, it's not. Defending yourself in your own country when you're the majority, being an elected political party in Lebanon, that is not an act of war. No.
Was October 7th an act of war?
Yes, it was. And the Palestinians are at war with Israel, and many, many different countries back Hamas, not just Iran.
Are the rockets that Hezbollah fires into northern Israel on a near daily basis an act of war?
No, they're done to support the Palestinians who are being oppressed. I mean, are they an act of war? I don't know.
And so when these senior IRGC commanders meet up with Hezbollah in a IRGC military base, okay, not an Iranian embassy.
Oh, it's not an embassy now. I guess if you're Iran, it doesn't count as an embassy.
And Israel strikes. Your response is to say that that is an act of war. If you would listen.
Yeah, actually it is. If you go into someone else's country without permission and you blow up a diplomatic embassy, that is an act of war. Yes, yes, it is. And Israel has done this over and over and over again. They've been striking people in Syria and Iranians in Syria who are there with the permission of the Syrian government. And that is an act of war. Yes.
To us for the past 2 years, much less the past 45 years, you'd know that Iranians don't want war with Israel. We want peace with Israel. Iranian people inside of Iran have come out and said.
See, do you see this? She's pro-Israel. Listen to her. She thinks Israel's the victim. This is the Iranian feminist movement. She represents the Iranian feminist movement. She represents the Iranian, the Iranian human rights movement. She represents the opposition to the Islamic Republic, and she supports Israel, right? If you tell me that, oh, I don't support the Islamic Republic, I support the Palestinians, but I don't support the Islamic Republic, I support the protests against them, well, you're supporting Zionists because this woman's a fucking Zionist. She thinks October 7th is the crime, not the occupation of Palestine, not the bombardment of Gaza. She thinks that the Palestinians don't have the right to defend themselves. She doesn't want anyone to oppose Israel. She wants peace with Israel. She wants everyone to just be fine with what Israel does to the Palestinians. She's a Zionist. Thank you. I really appreciate this because I am so tired of people trying to both sides this. Well, I'm against Israel, but Caleb, Iran is so bad. Well, the people that are staging the protests in Iran are pro-Israel. This woman is pro-Israel. She thinks Israel's the victim. She believes what Mossad says to justify their actions. She's spreading Israeli propaganda. So don't anybody give this. Well, I'm not pro-Israel, but Iran is evil and I support the protests. She's the protests and she's a fucking Zionist.
Over and over and over again. It's you that wants war with Israel. It's your hatred for Israel and your hatred for Jews that's pulling us into a war that we didn't ask for. Have we?
Poor Israel. Poor Israel. Oh my God, she's a Zionist. The Iranian feminist movement is a Zionist operation, right? The Iranian feminist movement, it's not about headscarves. It's not about human rights. It's about poor little Israel. We just want to get along with Israel. Why won't you listen to us? Israel got attacked unfairly. Israel never did anything wrong.
Not suffered enough for the past 45 years that we now have to be used as pawns for your fantasies about war with Israel.
You're using Iranian women as pawns because I can tell you that the majority of Iranian men, women, children, and everybody else don't support Israel like this woman does. I can tell you that. There ain't no love for Israel in Iran or any other Muslim country. And this video is proof that the Iranian feminist movement are being used as pawns by Israel to destabilize the Islamic Republic. This woman is a Zionist. She is making Zionist arguments.
Leave us alone. We don't want.
Yeah, why don't you leave Iran alone? Right? I doubt you're there. You're probably in London or in Southern California with the Pahlavi family who fled after their people rose up against them after years of dictatorship. Why don't you leave Iran alone? Your country had a revolution and they kicked you and your family out. So why don't you stay out? Either go home and become an Iranian citizen and participate in Iranian politics again and vote like women in Iran do, serve in the parliament like Iranian women do at a much higher rate. There's a far bigger percentage of Iranian women in the parliament than there are women in the American Congress, right? Go to Iran and participate in their political system or shut the fuck up.
That. So if you want to support the Islamic Republic in putting Iranians' lives at risk and everyone's lives at risk, they just kill.
How is Iran putting people's lives at risk? By responding to people killing their diplomats and blowing up their embassy.
A 10-year-old Bedouin you wanted.
A 10-year-old Bedouin boy, right? Just like they execute all women who don't wear headscarves, like you said at the beginning of your video. I'm sure that's true. right? Israeli TV said it, so it must be true, right?
Then just come out and say that with your whole chest. Say you support the Islamic Republic in their continued aggressions that put every...
I do support the Islamic Republic in standing up for the Palestinians, in standing up for the Yemenis, in standing up for the Iraqi Shia community, in standing up for the Syrian Arab Republic and the Syrian Christians and the Syrian Alawites and the Syrian majority against ISIS. I support the Islamic Republic in standing with Venezuela and bringing food to Venezuela when the USA puts crippling sanctions on Venezuela and tries to starve their people. I support the Islamic Republic in supporting Cuba against the criminal American blockade. I support the Islamic Republic in standing with the Irish freedom struggle. How else should I support the Islamic Republic? I support the Islamic Republic in standing with the Palestinians. I support the Islamic Republic in standing with the people of Yemen. I support the Islamic Republic in building schools and electrifying Iran. I support them in building highways and industrializing Iran. I support them in standing and cooperating with China. I support them in cooperating with Russia. I support them in a lot of different ways. I support the Islamic Republic of Iran because they are fighting the imperialists, and you are an imperialist Zionist bootlicker.
Everybody's lives at risk, but don't say Iran. For 2 years.
Don't say Iran. Iran, 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 Iran. I'm going to say Iran as much as I want to. Iran, 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 Iran. I can say Iran as much as I want to.
Years we asked you to come out and say free Iran, and now you want to speak up to put our lives at risk.
Now, Israel asked you to help destabilize your homeland. And you are so full of hatred for your own people that you looked at Iraq and what happened to Iraq after the U.S. invaded it. And you looked at Syria after the USA attempted regime change there. And you looked at Libya after the USA attempted regime change there. And you looked at Afghanistan after 20 years of occupation. And you said, God damn it, why can't that happen to my people? I want that to happen to my people. I want Iranians to be refugees. You know, I want Iran to be destabilized and balkanized with different tribal groups fighting each other. By God, I want my own people to be getting on rafts and drowning in the Mediterranean because their country is so unstable. You hate your own people so much that you have fled to the imperialist countries, and you're making propaganda to make what happened to Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and Libya happen to your own people. You are human garbage. You know, I don't like the American government, but I don't jerk off to 9/11. That's what you're doing, right? I don't like the American government. I don't approve of American government policies, but I don't fantasize about the people in my neighborhood becoming refugees and having their homes bombed to shreds. That is what you are actively lobbying to do to your own people. You are human garbage. You really are. You know, it's one thing if you don't like the Iranian government, but you are literally in your country's enemy country trying to build the case for a war to murder your own people. People who have the same ethnicity as you, people who grew up speaking the same language as you, because you don't agree with their religion, because you don't agree with their politics, you want millions of your own people to die, and you are collaborating and spreading propaganda for Israel. Seriously. And I mean, how do you look yourself in the face? Right? How do you look yourself in the face? Seriously, I don't get it, you know? The American government, the American military, at least they're from here. At least we're American doing the crimes of American imperialism. You know, Israelis, at least they're Israelis doing it. You're Iranian, and you want to murder Iranians, right? This is beyond me, right? I mean, it's one thing, right? If your country's run by the imperialists or something like that, and you think that's the real government, but you're from a country that is under attack by the imperialists. There's people who look like you that will become refugees. There's people who speak your language who will get their homes bombed and destroyed. We've seen what happened in Iraq. We've seen what happened in Libya. We've seen what happened in Afghanistan. And by golly, you just want that to happen to your own people. I mean, what kind of person are you? right? I mean, this is a level of evil that is shocking. I mean, this is like the Jews who put other Jews in gas chambers. That's what we're dealing with here. She hates her own people so much that she wants the fate of Iraq, the fate of Libya, the fate of Syria, the fate of Afghanistan to happen to her own ethnic group. She's not an Israeli. She's not an American. She is a self-hating Iranian, right? And the sad thing about this is this woman, she's talking about being Iranian. She probably must hate some part of herself, right? Because in order to be this pathological, right, she must on some level like really hate like her nose, her face. She must really, right? The Miami Cuba crowd, they're the exact same way. The all over the world, we have them here in America. People who flee their own country and want all the people in their homeland to die, right? In order to fit in with the Americans, in order to fit in the new country, they want all the people in their homeland to die. I mean, they literally want bombs dropped on their people. They want sanctions to prevent their people from getting medicine to be passed. They hate their own people so much.
And say, go to war, Iran. You are no friend to the Iranian people for that.
No, you're no friend to the Iranian people because you're making propaganda for their enemies and reinforcing the lies of Israel and the lies of American imperialism. So there you go. All right, everybody. It's one of those nights. But hey, I'm glad you're all here. So